Chosen one, it's an emergency. You're already very late. Watch this before you watch anything else. This is not a casual moment in your life, and this is not something you can gently push aside for later, because heaven is stirring urgently over you, and the clock of destiny has already moved further than you realize. There is something precious unfolding around your name, and if your heart feels even the smallest pull right now, hold on to it tightly and do not look away. Type Amen if you believe. The reason this feels intense is because God has been calling you quietly for a long time, and today that quiet call has become a strong and loving cry meant to awaken your spirit before you miss what was prepared with your name written on it. Stay here with an open heart, because what you are about to understand could protect your blessing and reposition your future in ways you never imagined. You have felt behind for a while, as if everyone else is moving forward while you are still trying to catch your breath from battles nobody else could see. God sees the nights you cried silently, the moments you doubted yourself, and the heavy thoughts that made you feel late, forgotten, or overlooked. This urgency is not to scare you, but to wake you lovingly, because when heaven says you are late, it does not mean you are rejected. It means there is something waiting that cannot be delayed any longer without consequence. You were chosen for a purpose that requires attention, obedience, and courage. And that purpose is gently knocking on your heart right now. Before you continue with anything else today, take one small second to press like on this video as a simple act of faith, because that small action can become a sign in your spirit that you are ready to receive what God is releasing in this urgent hour. The Father is not rushing you with anger, but He is urging you with deep love, because the window for certain blessings does not remain open forever. Jesus has been walking beside you through confusion, through delay, through heartbreak, and He has been patiently waiting for this very moment when your heart would finally become still enough to listen fully. You were never meant to live distracted, constantly postponing what God placed inside you, telling yourself there will always be another day to obey, another week to forgive, another month to start again. There are seasons in life when grace whispers softly, but there are also seasons when grace speaks firmly, because time matters and obedience matters even more. This is one of those seasons, and your spirit already knows it, which is why your chest feels tight and your thoughts feel stirred. The emergency is not about punishment, but about alignment, because your calling has been waiting patiently for your full attention. Type 1111 if you trust in God. Jesus is not disappointed in you, and He is not standing far away with folded arms, because His heart has always been open and full of compassion toward your weakness. Yet love sometimes speaks urgently when it sees danger approaching, and distraction has been the quiet thief around your destiny. You were chosen to carry light into dark spaces, to speak hope where others speak fear, and to stand steady when others fall apart. If you keep delaying what God has placed in your hands, you risk arriving at doors that were meant to open earlier, but now require greater struggle, because time was not honored. There is healing that has already been assigned to you, relationships that are meant to be restored, and breakthroughs that are prepared to step into your life, but they require readiness. Being late in the Spirit does not mean you are beyond rescue, because God specializes in restoring lost time when a heart turns back quickly and sincerely. The Father is calling you to wake up spiritually, to shake off passivity, and to stop treating holy nudges as optional suggestions. This is the hour to return to prayer with focus, to return to forgiveness with sincerity, and to return to obedience with humility. The enemy has tried to make you comfortable in delay, whispering that you can start tomorrow, that urgency is only for others, and that your small steps do not matter. God is lovingly correcting that lie, because your steps matter more than you know, and your timing is deeply connected to the people you are meant to bless. When you move slowly in obedience, someone else waits longer for the help, encouragement, or strength that you were chosen to carry. Your life is not random, and your delays do not only affect you, because heaven designed your path to intersect with many others. Jesus understands your fear of failing again, and he understands the shame that tries to convince you that you are not worthy to move forward. Yet the cross was never about your perfection. It was about his power working through your weakness and turning fragile obedience into strong impact. You are not being rushed toward pressure, you are being guided toward purpose, and that purpose requires courage that only grows when you respond instead of retreating. The emergency tone is the sound of love refusing to let you waste another precious season of your life. God is ready to pour clarity into your confusion, peace into your anxiety, and boldness into your hesitation, but you must step closer instead of staying distant. The lateness you feel is not final, because mercy is still standing at the door, holding opportunity in gentle hands. This is your moment to realign, to surrender pride, to release excuses, and to accept that you were chosen not by accident but by divine intention. Do not scroll past your destiny. Do not silence the conviction in your heart, and do not underestimate how serious this moment truly is. You are deeply loved, fiercely protected, and carefully chosen, and this urgent call is proof that heaven still believes in your assignment. Let today become the day you respond without delay, the day you listen fully, and the day you walk forward with renewed faith. What if abundance had always been influenced by a hidden brain signal buried in classified records and never fully disclosed to the public? This frequency is now creating new pathways, attracting opportunities, and reshaping lives faster than expected. Thousands are already using it to draw wealth like never before. Click the link in the description and comments now, and activate the money-attracting brainwave today. There are moments in life when delay feels safe, because staying where you are seems easier than stepping into the unknown, yet comfort can quietly become the cage that keeps you from destiny. The Father is not measuring you by how fast you move compared to others, but by how quickly you respond when He whispers your name. You were chosen long before you understood what that meant, and even in seasons when you felt ordinary or unnoticed, heaven was already preparing spaces that only your obedience could fill. Jesus has been gently strengthening you through hidden battles, allowing trials to shape your compassion and pain, to deepen your empathy. The lateness you feel is connected to how long you have doubted your worth, how long you have waited for perfect conditions, and how long you have silenced the conviction rising inside you. Yet even now, grace stands ready to turn hesitation into holy momentum the moment you say yes in your spirit. There is a difference between being delayed by circumstances and being delayed by fear, and much of your waiting has been shaped by the fear of stepping forward without full certainty. God never asked you to see the entire staircase before taking the first step, because faith grows when you trust His hand more than your own understanding. You have been looking for confirmation through comfort, yet confirmation often comes through courage that moves before feelings agree. The emergency tone in your spirit is the loving reminder that courage cannot stay postponed without affecting the timing of what has been prepared for you. Type 2323 if you agree. Your life carries influence far beyond what you can measure, and the people connected to your journey are impacted by whether you rise or remain still. When you delay forgiveness, someone remains trapped in bitterness longer than necessary, and when you delay obedience, someone else waits longer for encouragement that could have changed their direction. God chose you not because you are flawless, but because your heart has the capacity to grow, to love deeply, and to remain humble even after mistakes. Jesus sees the potential that still rests within you, even if you struggle to recognize it in the mirror. There are blessings that respond to movement, because faith expressed through action becomes the key that unlocks certain doors. You may have been praying for change, for breakthrough, and for restoration, yet heaven has been waiting for your cooperation in small but meaningful steps. Obedience does not always begin with dramatic gestures, because sometimes it starts with quiet discipline, renewed prayer, and the decision to release habits that pull you away from purpose. The lateness God speaks about is not condemnation, but a wake-up call wrapped in compassion and determination. You were never meant to live half awake spiritually, drifting from one distraction to another while the deeper call inside you remains unanswered. The Father desires your full attention, not because He needs validation, but because your heart functions best when it is anchored in Him. Jesus has been standing beside you in moments of confusion, patiently waiting for you to lean fully into His guidance instead of relying only on your own strength. The urgency you feel is not pressure meant to overwhelm you, but clarity meant to awaken you. There is restoration available for the time you believe you wasted, and there is healing ready for the wounds that slowed your progress. God is not intimidated by your past, and He is not shocked by the mistakes you regret, because His love has always been larger than your failures. When you turn back with sincerity and determination, He meets you with mercy that rebuilds what seemed lost. The emergency is about alignment now, so that what remains of this season becomes fruitful instead of fading quietly away. Type yes to affirm. Every delay taught you something valuable, even when it felt painful or unnecessary, and God can weave even your detours into a story that carries strength and testimony. Yet there comes a moment when lessons must transform into action, because understanding without movement cannot produce change. You are not being rushed into chaos, you are being invited into focus, into discipline, and into renewed spiritual alertness. The lateness can be corrected when you respond quickly from this moment forward, because grace multiplies when obedience follows conviction. Imagine the peace that settles in your heart when you stop resisting the call and begin walking steadily toward what God has been showing you all along. Imagine the strength that rises within you when you choose prayer over panic, faith over fear, and obedience over avoidance. These are not dramatic dreams, but simple daily decisions that slowly shift the direction of your entire life. Jesus is not asking for perfection, He is asking for willingness that grows stronger day by day. The emergency tone is heaven's way of protecting you from drifting further away from your highest purpose, and it is proof that you are still seen and still valued. If you were forgotten, there would be silence instead of urgency, and indifference instead of loving correction. The Father corrects those He loves, not to shame them, but to position them for greater peace and deeper fulfillment. This is the hour to clear distractions, to silence unnecessary noise, and to return your focus to the One who called you chosen. You are not too late to step into what was prepared, but you must move with sincerity from this point onward. Let today mark the beginning of intentional obedience, renewed prayer, and humble surrender that replaces hesitation. When heaven calls you chosen, it is not speaking casually or emotionally in the moment, because that word was written over your life before you ever faced your first struggle. The lateness you feel is connected to how long you have lived beneath your true identity, shrinking yourself to fit environments that were never designed for your calling. A concealed brainwave once stored in classified files is said to ignite strong prosperity. In just 7 minutes, you can unlock the switch in your mind that draws abundance like a magnet. Click the link in the video description and comments below to activate your hidden wealth wave right now. Jesus did not endure pain and rejection so that you would continue walking as if you are insignificant or powerless. His love was poured out so that you could stand confidently as someone redeemed, restored, and intentionally appointed for impact. Every time you agreed with thoughts that told you that you are behind, unqualified, or unworthy, you stepped slightly away from the confidence heaven wanted you to carry. God is urgently reminding you that identity must be restored before destiny can be fulfilled with strength and clarity. You have been comparing your timeline with others, measuring your progress by visible milestones instead of spiritual growth, and this comparison has quietly drained your courage. The Father never designed your path to look identical to anyone else's journey because your assignment is unique and your preparation has been personal. What feels like delay in the natural world has often been preparation in the spiritual realm, shaping your heart so that when you rise with humility instead of pride. Yet preparation must eventually give way to participation, because there comes a time when learning must transform into living boldly. Type 1212 if you walk by faith. Faith is not a feeling that appears only when circumstances are comfortable, because true faith grows strongest when you choose to trust, even while your surroundings seem uncertain. You have waited for the perfect emotional confirmation before stepping forward, yet faith often moves first and allows understanding to follow. The urgency in this season is heaven's way of telling you that you are strong enough now, that you have been trained through hidden battles, and that you are more prepared than your fears suggest. You do not need another year of doubt to become worthy, because worthiness was already secured through God's grace. There are spiritual opportunities that pass quietly when ignored, and although mercy restores much, wisdom teaches you not to repeatedly postpone what requires obedience. The emergency is not about losing God's love, because His love remains constant and unwavering, but about missing specific alignments that are tied to timing. Certain doors open in response to readiness, and readiness grows when you respond quickly to conviction instead of resisting it. You are being invited to step into maturity, where excuses no longer control your decisions and where discipline begins to guard your destiny. Your heart has always carried compassion that others can feel, even when you try to hide it behind caution or insecurity. God placed that compassion within you because someone's healing is connected to your willingness to be present, to listen, and to speak hope when needed. When you hesitate, you are not only protecting yourself from risk, you are also withholding light from spaces that desperately need it. Jesus is gently strengthening your inner resolve so that you no longer allow fear to silence the gift that was meant to bless many. Type 2020 to claim miracles. Miracles are not always dramatic public events, because many miracles begin quietly in the heart as renewed courage, restored peace, and revived purpose. The greatest miracle you may experience in this season is the transformation from hesitation to bold obedience. When you align your actions with your calling, you create space for divine intervention to meet your effort with unexpected favor. Heaven moves powerfully when a willing heart steps forward without demanding perfect clarity first. You have also carried wounds from past disappointments that taught you to guard yourself emotionally, convincing you that it is safer not to hope too much. Yet guarding your heart too tightly has also limited your ability to fully receive what God desires to give you. The emergency tone includes an invitation to release those old defenses, to trust again, and to allow healing to flow where fear once stood. Jesus does not rush your healing process, but He does encourage you not to camp permanently in places that were meant to be temporary. There is a version of you that is braver, more disciplined, more focused, and more surrendered than the one you have been recently living as. That version of you is not imaginary, because it has been slowly forming through every trial you endured and every lesson you learned. God is calling that stronger version of you forward now, because the next chapter requires maturity that delay cannot continue shaping. You are not being pushed into something impossible. You are being drawn into something prepared specifically for your growth and fulfillment. When you wake up each morning with intentional prayer and conscious obedience, you begin to shift the spiritual atmosphere around your life. Small, consistent decisions become powerful building blocks that gradually restore lost momentum. The lateness that once felt heavy begins to transform into renewed pace when you move steadily instead of sporadically. Jesus walks beside you, not as a distant observer, but as a constant companion, strengthening your resolve step by step. This is the season to reclaim your focus, to silence distractions that steal time, and to replace procrastination with purposeful action rooted in faith. The Father is not demanding perfection from you, but He is inviting consistency that reflects genuine commitment. Your destiny does not require dramatic gestures every day, because faithful small steps accumulate into remarkable transformation over time. The urgency is a reminder that time is valuable, that obedience matters, and that your life holds more weight than you have allowed yourself to believe. You are still chosen, still called, and still deeply loved. And this emergency is the sound of grace refusing to let you settle beneath your true potential. The lateness heaven speaks about includes the distance that slowly formed between your daily life and your deep awareness of His presence. Jesus has never stepped away from you, yet you sometimes stepped into noise that made it harder to recognize His nearness. Being chosen was never only about tasks and assignments, because it was first about relationship, about walking closely with the one who formed you with careful intention. When intimacy weakens, clarity fades, and when clarity fades, hesitation increases, creating cycles of delay that feel confusing and heavy. God is urgently inviting you back into closeness, not with fear or shame, but with longing and compassion that desires your full heart again. The emergency tone is love calling you back to the secret place where peace becomes stronger than pressure. Deep within your brain is a small area tied to wealth and success, once hidden in restricted studies and classified documents. This newly uncovered frequency is helping people exchange financial stress for ease, and God has led you to see this message at this very moment. Click the link in the description and comments to activate this hidden brainwave now. You once felt joy in quiet moments of prayer, where your heart slowed down and your worries felt smaller in His presence. Over time, responsibilities increased, disappointments accumulated, and your spiritual focus became fragmented by constant mental noise. None of this surprised God, yet He knows that your strength is renewed only when you draw near intentionally. The lateness is not about punishment, but about the need to restore depth before moving further into destiny. Type 666 if you trust Jesus. Trust is not proven only during crisis, because it is also revealed in daily surrender, in choosing to place your thoughts, plans, and fears into His hands consistently. You may trust Jesus in principle, yet still struggle to release control over outcomes that feel uncertain. This tension between faith and control has slowed your spiritual pace, because divided focus weakens forward movement. God is inviting you to trust more deeply now, to let go of constant overthinking, and to allow His guidance to shape your steps without constant resistance. Intimacy requires time, and time requires priority, and priority reveals what truly matters in your heart. You have given energy to many necessary things, Yet some sacred moments were postponed again and again, replaced by urgency that was not eternal. The emergency you feel now is heaven gently correcting misplaced urgency, reminding you that nothing is more important than alignment with God's presence. When intimacy is restored, confidence returns naturally, and when confidence returns, obedience becomes less intimidating. Jesus longs for your honest conversations, not polished words or perfect prayers, but sincere openness that allows him to heal hidden fears. There are thoughts you carried alone that he has been ready to comfort, yet you often buried them under distraction instead of bringing them into his light. The distance you feel at times is not because he withdrew, but because your heart became crowded with unprocessed emotion. The Father desires to clear that inner clutter so that your spirit can breathe freely again. Type 1919 to receive miracles. Miracles in this season may begin as restored connection, as renewed hunger for God's presence, and as quiet joy returning to your spirit. When intimacy is revived, you become sensitive again to gentle direction that once felt distant or unclear. The emergency is about returning before further drift occurs, because spiritual distance grows subtly when left unattended. God is not counting the days you felt distracted, but he is inviting you to count this day as the beginning of renewed closeness. There were moments when you felt spiritually dry, when inspiration seemed absent, and when your heart felt tired from trying to stay strong. During those moments, heaven did not label you as unworthy, because compassion remained steady even when your focus wavered. Yet dryness cannot be ignored forever, because a thirsty soul eventually weakens without living water. Jesus is offering you refreshment now, urging you to come back fully so that your spirit does not continue operating from emptiness. You were never meant to carry purpose without presence, because assignment without intimacy becomes exhausting and hollow. God wants you strong not only in responsibility, but also in relationship, because true strength flows from communion with him. The lateness includes how long you have tried to handle certain burdens alone, believing that independence was maturity. Real maturity is humble dependence, choosing daily to lean on divine wisdom instead of personal understanding. As you restore quiet time with God, you will notice clarity returning gradually, like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Decisions that once felt confusing will become simpler, not because circumstances change instantly, but because your perspective becomes aligned again. Fear will lose its loudness, and peace will regain authority in your heart. The urgency is heaven's kindness, preventing prolonged spiritual distance that could have deepened confusion further. Imagine waking up each morning, aware that you are not walking alone, that divine guidance accompanies your smallest choices. Imagine ending each day with gratitude instead of regret, because you responded promptly to gentle convictions instead of postponing them. These are not unreachable ideals, but attainable rhythms when intimacy becomes your highest priority. Jesus is not asking for dramatic displays of devotion, but consistent closeness that transforms your inner life. Your chosen identity flourishes most when rooted deeply in relationship with God, because identity without intimacy becomes fragile under pressure. The enemy attempts to distract you precisely because intimacy strengthens discernment and protects your destiny. When you remain close to God, you recognize deception faster and respond to guidance more confidently. This is why heaven's tone feels urgent, because intimacy restored protects everything else that follows. You are not late beyond repair, because grace still stands open, welcoming you back into deeper communion without hesitation. The Father's arms are not crossed in frustration, but extended in invitation, ready to renew your strength and refill your joy. there is still something tender that must be addressed within your heart, because urgency is also connected to healing wounds that you quietly carried without fully surrendering them to God. You have learned to function while hurting, to smile while carrying disappointment, and to serve while feeling unseen, yet unhealed pain has subtly slowed your spiritual momentum. The lateness heaven speaks about includes how long you have postponed facing certain memories, conversations, and emotions that needed gentle restoration. Jesus has been patient with your process, yet this season requires courage to finally allow light into places you kept guarded. You told yourself that time alone would fix everything, believing that if you ignored certain feelings they would eventually fade on their own. Some wounds did soften with time, yet others remained beneath the surface, influencing your reactions, decisions, and confidence without you fully recognizing it. God does not expose pain to shame you, because His intention is always healing and wholeness, not embarrassment. The emergency tone is compassion, urging you not to carry hidden weight any longer, because unaddressed pain can quietly distort your sense of worth and delay your progress. You were chosen not because you never broke, but because your brokenness could become a testimony of restoration. Jesus understands the betrayal that made you cautious, the rejection that made you doubt yourself, and the disappointment that made you lower expectations to protect your heart. Yet living guarded has also limited your joy, because walls built for protection can eventually block love and opportunity. The Father is calling you to trust Him enough to lower those walls slowly, knowing that His presence is your true security. Type yes to affirm. A 7-second brainwave approach, previously limited to elite groups and stored in classified files, is now available to everyone, and many call it the 30-second miracle. Researchers claim it stimulates a dormant brain center associated with prosperity and blessings. Click the link in the comments below before it is removed from the internet again. Affirming your readiness to heal is not a declaration of strength alone, because it is also an act of surrender that acknowledges you cannot fix everything by yourself. God never expected you to carry emotional burdens without divine help, because healing was always meant to flow from His compassion into your wounded places. The lateness includes how long you tried to appear strong instead of admitting you needed comfort and restoration. Strength is not the absence of tears, but the courage to bring those tears into the presence of Jesus without hiding them. There are memories that still influence how you respond to new opportunities, making you hesitate even when your heart desires to move forward. When old pain speaks louder than present promise, it can convince you that history will always repeat itself. God is gently rewriting that narrative, because your past does not hold authority over your future when surrendered to Him fully. The urgency now is about releasing those old agreements with fear, so that you can step forward without invisible chains around your spirit. Type Amen if you believe. Believing that healing is possible may feel simple on the surface, yet deep within it requires you to trust that God can restore what once felt permanently damaged. Jesus has never turned away from wounded hearts, because His compassion draws near to brokenness instead of avoiding it. When you allow Him to heal, you create space for renewed confidence, deeper joy, and stronger faith to grow naturally. The emergency is not only about action and identity, but about becoming whole enough to carry your calling without being weighed down by unresolved pain. You may have grown comfortable with certain coping patterns that once helped you survive difficult seasons, yet those patterns are no longer serving your growth.